So, welcome everybody. This is the first training following the series of meetings and mentoring sessions we are conducting in the framework of the two regional activities of WES on education for sustainable development and awareness raising on sustainable consumption and non-conventional water resources and water education. Welcome all again. We will start with a few housekeeping notes for this session. Again, we have interpretation, English and French, so you can choose the channel from the bottom bar that you prefer. And we would like to ask you keep your cameras on during the training and microphone off when you're not speaking, while have an eye on chat box because some things might be said there. In any case, you can use the reactions button from the bottom bar again. If you would like to ask a question, you can raise hand as well. Very briefly now, let's see an overview of the whole training that started back in last summer, late summer and early autumn, launching an online survey with former WES trainees and selected stakeholders on their campaigns and projects and initiatives related to awareness raising and educating, either on non-conventional water resources or sustainable consumption. So we had managed to gather 11 cases of projects and initiatives, either trainings or policies or campaigns or school programs from the participating countries: Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Palestine, Tunisia, and Turkey. So, as a second phase of the whole process, we had organized early this year our first plenary session in January, where we gathered participants from all case studies, while 7 of them were presented, fully presented. So, this first plenary session gave us the opportunity to share your programs and activities and also give some feedback from Professor Skoulos, the WES team leader, who was with us, and from peers and other experts of WES. This first plenary session also highlighted and raised the regional dimension of your cases. In the next months, in February and March, actually, we continued after the plenary session with the bilateral meetings with you and the representatives of the case study. So we hold some 9 one-to-one online meetings that offer us the opportunity to discuss in more depth on your projects, give us more information about the context and the methodology that you followed actually. And we also discussed the challenges that you faced, the achievements so far. And we even got more into possible solutions and current opportunities that you can have regarding your campaigns and programs or sustainable consumption or water. So, based on the collected feedback that we had with you during the bilateral mentoring sessions and the reflections in our discussions, we've managed to group the key priorities raised by you, and this is how we ended up with these two online trainings in order to further support you. And we come today to this first training that it is dedicated to effective communication of your programs, your initiatives, your actions and campaigns. And it will also have an aspect of engagement. This is the agenda of today. I think that you all have received the agenda so far. So with this last slide, I will give the floor to our invited expert, Mr. Alexandros Kandarakis, Head of Communications of Global Water Partners Mediterranean, GWMed, who is the key facilitator of our today's training. So with this slide, I will stop sharing. And Alexandros, over to you. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Vicky. So let me share my screen. So please let me know if you can see everything as you should be seeing it.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thanks everyone for joining. We will start very briefly with a Mentimeter poll, just to get to know who is on this webinar and what do we hope to learn today. So if you can please join, if you can go to menti.com and insert the code here, either on your mobile phone or on a web browser. And I will stop sharing here and I will share the Mentimeter screen.
We have shared it in the chat also.
Perfect.
For people to.
Thank you. So I see responses. I see people from Greece, from Palestine, from Lebanon as well. Perfect. So I think most people have been able to join the Mentimeter, the Menti. If somebody has a problem, please write in the chat, and you can also write your response in the chat. That's fine. So what is your institution and your position? Just to get a feel for who you are. Thank you. Anyone else who managed to reach that question on the Mentimeter poll? Perfect. It's coming in now. Excellent. The Maksumi Foundation, Program Manager, Director of the Bethlehem Development Foundation. Thank you. Jala Group, Zuade, Social Media Communication Officer. Excellent. And the team from MIO as well. Perfect. Thank you. And what do you hope to learn today? Really, so what is your aspiration leaving this webinar in 2 hours' time? What do you hope to have learned or problem to have solved, or what is it that you're aiming to get out of today? So practical tips for communicating effectively. Great. Effective methods and messaging, perhaps the right messaging for the right audience, and depending also on the content. It's very interesting. And you can write anything related, maybe you're concerned about fundraising, maybe whatever it is. It doesn't, and we'll see what we manage to to share today. But it's important to know what our goals are, methods to communicate, and how to communicate on social media. Excellent. Thank you. Perfect. So I will stop. This is very helpful for me as well to have this idea of what the expectations are. So let me then go back to the presentation, and you can let me know if it works. We had a lot of training during COVID, didn't we, all of us? So hopefully
it's okay. It's okay. It works. No worries.
it's okay. So now we are left with the skills, and COVID has left mostly, so it's good. So what are the goals of this seminar quite quickly? So to empower you to advance your communication, what I think we often create a perception, an idea of communication as something very demanding, perhaps something difficult that requires a lot of resources. And for sure, today there are so many social media, so many media. There is TikTok. There is every day there seems to be a different platform or a different way of communicating. All this talk also about young people, you know, that they don't even use the platforms that other people use, like us, who are no, or some people who are not so young, like myself. So there's this gap. So a lot of this might make us think that, you know, communication is like rocket science. It's something very complicated. How can we do it? And the aim today is really to change that myth, okay? Because I think that it is a myth. Also, we will share, as you said in the poll, we will share some examples and some principles of good communication. Please feel free to come in and discuss obstacles you feel you may be facing. These may be real obstacles, or they may be obstacles that you feel are stopping you from communicating effectively. We also want to share also from your experience, successes and failures, and I think both are very important to learn from. But before that, what I'm suggesting here a bit provocatively is think about whether you really want to communicate, and what does this mean? Why would I say this? Well, we will discuss this more during the training, but the idea here is that communication is, and we can go, I think we can start here on the key takeaways. So why would somebody not want to communicate? Because communication, I think, is like a relationship. You are building a relationship with your audience, with the people participating in your projects, with your donors, with your community. It is a relationship. It is not somebody getting just on television or on a balcony and giving a speech to a faceless crowd. So relationships require consistency. It is like a human relationship, right? You need to be consistent. You need to be transparent. You don't just transmit whatever you feel like, whenever you feel like it, or present the picture that you want. You have a responsibility. That's what I'm trying to say. You have a responsibility towards your audience. And there is mutuality. So there needs to be. So especially for organizations like yourselves, I think and we will discuss this a bit more, thinking about your relationship, let's say a brand, a big clothing brand, or a big company. What is your asset versus the resources that a big company has? I think one of the biggest assets is that you can be very close to your community, and you can be very close to real concerns in everyday life, and not just about selling a product. But this means that you have to be close to them, and you have to listen to them as well. And very often when we are running a project, the reality is that we are running our project, we have our goals, we have our deliverables, we have our commitment to our donors. And sometimes it can be hard to actually listen to what the community wants, to what people want and what they need, and to adapt to that. So this is not easy. So this can be a reason for keeping us from actually communicating very effectively. And thank you. We have someone else in the chat as well introducing themselves. Thank you very much. I think another one of the simplest golden rules to take away from today is to put yourself in your audience's shoes. So if you're thinking, why are people not responding to my messages? Try to put yourself in the audience's shoes and then think, do I find this interesting? Do I find it exciting? Is there something in this for me that really I am benefiting from this? And here, again, we will discuss this a bit more, but it is not enough, and I think most of you know this already, it is not enough to say, because climate change is so important and it concerns us all, therefore you should care about it. Well, this is true, but actually, how does this benefit me? How does, it can also be very depressing. Or who wants this level of responsibility, about saving the world or about doing the right thing? So we have to think about what and in the end, why do us ourselves spend so much time on social media, just digesting different kinds of news? Because we want entertainment, we want something simple, something fun, something engaging. So we need to make sure that our communication as organizations does not become something serious and overwhelming that people just don't want to relate to. Also, what is it you want to communicate? Again, communication, it can be a requirement of donors, it can be a requirement of the project. Of course, that's all true. But I think it's very important to remember at the heart of it, all of you, I am sure, are working in your organizations because you have your ideals and your vision of what you want to achieve in the world, things that you want to change, things that you want to offer the world. And I think this needs to be the basis of what you want to communicate. So it comes from a need rather than just a typical requirement. It's not just a tool. Another important thing is we don't need to wait to get the secret recipe of doing things perfectly. Try different things on social media, with media. We will discuss briefly about all this. Get feedback. This is very important. And then adapt to the feedback that you're getting. Also, we will speak very briefly about communication and fundraising. And I think, again, this is a provocative statement, but I think it's true that the best way, so if you just communicate something to people, to your friends, try to describe your organization to a friend of yours who doesn't know it very well. I'm sure most of them will say, oh, this is very good. Sounds great. And then tell them, will you give me a donation? And not just $1 or euro or whatever it is. Not just something that they will, a slightly bigger donation, $20 or euros. Then they will start to say, okay, so where is this money really going? What is the value in this? And then you start to have actually a more interesting conversation with your audience. And finally, this is just the eternal versus the now in communication. So we're always trying to, these plastic pollution, climate change, biodiversity degradation, these are huge issues. They've been going on for a long time. Communication needs to focus on the now. What am I asking you to change now? What can we solve by taking a different course today? And sometimes it's actually important to leave out a lot of the background and a lot of the science, because if we put it all in, then maybe it becomes something it's like a ship that has already taken its course and it's impossible to change, or changing the course will take such a long time. So moving quickly, these are myths, right? So the communication requires a huge budget, that already you need to know a lot of people in media. You need to be a very established brand name. You need to have so many thousands of followers on social media. You need to do everything in a coordinated way. Why do I have this airplane here? Because I emphatically believe that it's not like an airplane where if you miss out one part in the engine, it just will not fly. Okay, so the airplane, it either flies or it stays on the ground. Communication is not like that. It's not like you need to have everything in place to start communicating. You can try different things to different audiences and see how it works. And it's very important to see, again, it depends on our perception. Is this a half full glass or a half empty glass? Very briefly, so how do you regard communication? Again, is it a tool that is not really related to the core of your work, or is it part of the core of your work? So if you think that the core of your work is protecting a wetland or reducing plastic pollution or revitalizing Bethlehem City, okay, and this is just the core, you need to think, is this core? So what I'm trying to show here, there is, of course, the core, let's say protecting a wetland or reducing plastic pollution, but there's all these other things around it, raising awareness, sharing examples, positive examples of change, getting volunteers to get experiences with our organization, advocacy, and all of these issues, communication plays an integral part. So what I'm saying is that I'm not just running my project and yes, of course, you can have access to the presentation. I see a question in the chat. So it's not a question of running my project and then, oh, I need to tell people about it. We're doing such a great job, but nobody knows about it. I think we need to think, getting people to know about our work and discuss about our work should be part of our project. Because this is also the idea that, the idea also that they develop about our project is very important. So very briefly, so what is communication? Is it a contest, like a beauty contest, or is it a collaboration? I think it can be a collaboration, a dialogue. And many people think about a communication as, oh, if I could go on television and just tell people what to do, tell them about climate change, or tell them about this risk, and get it into their heads, right? If I had the resources, the means, a huge budget. But there is a different way of communicating, which I think is more effective, especially for organizations like yourselves. So it's using relationships. So then one person can start a dialogue, and if the others find it interesting, and if the others find there is something in it for them, then they will transmit the message, the mouth to mouth, right? And this is, I think, what we should be counting on, rather than hoping to get huge exposure that will probably never come. So we already discussed this, and we will speak. I will speak when sharing a few real-world examples. I will speak, for example, of an organization in Greece that was doing great work, but almost no communication. And at some point, they decided they were doing art, so theater, in prisons for prison inmates, and especially during COVID. So they were reaching the most excluded members of society, right? In prison, getting them in contact with theater for the first time in their lives. They were doing amazing work, but nobody knew what they were doing. So at some point, they decided to send, somebody suggested some donors to them, and they sent them 25 letters, completely anonymous in the sense, with no feeling, just saying, look, this is our name, this is what we do, and could you support our work? And they were sharing this as an example of, this had nothing personal, and no sense of building a relationship. Okay, and we will discuss this a bit more. So I think a big mistake in communication is focusing only on our needs and ignoring what the audience wants. So again, my project, my goals, my deliverables. I need to get them to know this. But maybe my community has, at this moment, has another need or another issue, and I need to see how I will tackle this. Also very important, what am I offering to my audience? Is it even something entertaining? Am I offering participation to an event? Am I offering a competition, a contest, something that in any case will make them happy or they will find funny or whatever it is? And we already spoke about this. How am I listening to my audience? And from the perspective of my audience, just like with a personal, think about this, this can be funny, but think about it like a personal relationship. Or it can be a romantic relationship, or it can be a friendship. So the other person would think, what makes you different? What makes you interesting? Why should I develop a relationship with you? Why should I listen to your messages? Also very important, what makes me feel as the audience that you're really talking to me rather than just talking to anybody who will listen? This is very important. We need to reduce plastic, but I need to feel that you are talking to me. And again, what do I have to gain? Also, what are you asking me to do? And this can be, if you're asking something of me, this can be, oh, they want something from me. But I think this is an important secret. If they're asking something from me, this is also my opportunity to participate. This is, if you see what I mean, I'm asking something from my audience, but also I am offering something, an opportunity to really be part of this. So this is like the two sides of the coin. And I think this you asked for in the beginning for practical tips and how to and messaging. And so I think this scheme, I find it personally, I find it fascinating because I like psychology a lot as well. I hope you'll find it interesting and useful. So this is from a psychologist called Eric Berne, who described, he said, the personality of a person has three levels: the parent, the adult, and the child. Okay, the parent is, let's say, the more critical part. Is this serious? Is this well documented? Are they, do they have all the checks and audits and whatever? Is this a serious organization? The adult is the logical part that tries to find solutions to problems. It's not so much critical, who are you? I don't know you. It's more, is this working? Is this a good investment? Will this yield a result? Okay. And the child within us, right? This is all within a person, right? Is the more emotional part. So it can be creative, it can be joyful, it can be also very depressed, it can be very sad, it can listen to a sad piece of news and completely disengage. So I think this is a helpful scheme to think when we're thinking about things like climate change communication or depending also who are we addressing. So for example, the parent part of the personality, we would tell them, this is very important. And also this is, I think, when speaking to donors, we need to show this is very, we have all the financial checks and balances. There is transparency. This is a serious organization. It's a serious project. It's worth investing. So it's like proving that this is very serious and the right thing, very responsible. But we also need to speak to the adult person, the adult part of the personality, which we need to show them how our action, our program is yielding results. So we're influencing 20 people who are in this way, we're offering this kind of training, and this kind of training, we have done a survey, and it shows that when they come back home or when they go to work, they are more able to do this. So there is a rise in productivity, or there is a drop in poverty, or a rise in school attendance. Okay, it's the documentation that shows that this is really yielding results. But also at the same time, and this is what makes communication also challenging, is there is the child part. And the child part, what does it want to hear? It needs sentiment, feeling. It gets, if it hears too much serious stuff, oh, we are the most serious organization. The king was there, the president was there, the prime minister was there. He said, the child doesn't care about all that. It wants something exciting, emotional. This is, wow, these children were able for the first time, I don't know, the blind children were able to read books for the first time because they've had access to reading material for blind kids for the first time, and they were able to read my favorite story for the first time, and they were able to access it. This is amazing. Or there's a great event that I can be part of. So I think we will come back to this because this is important. I think when you're addressing your donors, your community, your anyone, even media, it's very important to think about these different levels. So to break my unstoppable monologue, because we've been discussing that communication is a dialogue, but I've been speaking all this time. So I would like to watch the next two videos and see, so it's two videos, and tell me afterwards, you can tell me what feelings do they produce for you, right? Positive feelings, negative feelings, what do you feel? And perhaps also what part of the personality are they speaking to? The parent, the adult, or the child? So
Alexander, in the chat, we will write in the chat afterwards, after watching the videos, or in the Menti?
No, I think it's simpler in the chat.
In the chat, great. Okay.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
I propose that you allow people to take the floor.
Even better, Professor Skoulas, even better. Thank you. That would be even better because we are a small group and we can interact directly. That would be even better. So let's go to the first video. Please let me know if you can hear the sound. So this is the first video. And so take a moment to reflect. How did it make you feel? Perhaps you can make a note so that you don't forget when you watch. The second video is very brief as well. But we want to see what is the difference in how it's making us feel. And the message really it's conveying. So let's watch the second one as well.
एक दिन हमारे गांव में किसी ने नहाने का सावर रख दिया। हमारे आधे गांव ने पानी पी लिया और एक शहर वाले का नहाना अभी खत्म ना हुआ।
So this was the second video. Who would like to take the floor and tell me and tell the group how do you see the different approach and how it made you feel. Let me see if perhaps I can stop sharing for a moment.
And we can ask people also to unmute themselves and open their cameras if they want.
Yes, please.
Hi, I can go ahead if it's possible. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Noor. I'm from Balastic, Egypt. I think what the video made me feel is how, on one hand, a country or a village has very scarcity of water, while on the other end of the world there is waste of water. So how can we mitigate that? How can we offset the waste of the water to appreciate the water that could have been be allocated to another village to that would give them life, like one drop of water could give a life to other village.
Excellent, thank you. And how do you see, because it was so two different videos, right? The first one showing the tap and the person on social media, and the second one with the water in the village. How do you see the difference between the two videos? How did it make you feel different?
I think frustration, I believe, like the frustration of water waste in one hand, while how this water brought a life to another village. So yeah, that's mainly it.
Perfect, thank you.
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, at the first video, I was very angry, not only frustrated. I think I liked the first one very much because it shows, you know, if you are not responsible, what a waste of water. By the second one, I think it's very important to show our responsibility towards the global issue. But I'm not sure if it works everywhere, because what should I care about India? I mean, I'm not talking myself, but that would be, you know, some thinking of the people. So I feel especially if we would start from zero, maybe it is more efficient to focus on the messaging you send to your people. And then if you feel that there is enough awareness about the issue and there is a commitment and responsibility, you can go to the global issue. So for me, the first one was very impressive, though I was angry. And I think that was the purpose, you know, of provoking your behavior towards an issue. In this case, the water issue. So I believe that is a very effective communication. Now, for Indian population, the second one might be also very impressive because it shows the need of the people to this source or resource, which is water in this case, and how we should behave to give the chance to others to get access to water. So both films are, I think, they reached out to me with a clear message in different ways. So the first one was more, felt angry, I was provoked. The second one is to show the collective, if you want, responsibility towards others. So I liked both videos, actually. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Khulud from Bethlehem in Palestine. And thank you for the presentation. It's really very, very challenging. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Khulud. Very, very interesting comments. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other reflections on what you heard or the videos that you saw?
I I'm Salama Namani from Lebanon. The first video also, in addition to the idea of wasting water, there was also the idea that the distraction that the social media or the mobile phones causes as well.
Des effets,
Sorry?
Please
Okay.
go on.
Yes. And the second one also is very emotional because when they found the source of water and everybody came, for me, it stirred really emotions in me about when people find something of value and they go at the water, and something that we take for granted in our countries, but in other countries it is so scarce. One drop of water is so valuable. Actually, and personally, where I live in Beirut, in the building where we live, we have a spring of water underneath our building, and this water it is of value, of course, but it is problematic at the same time because the water table may rise and it might affect some the under the basement. So we have, unfortunately, we have to throw to squander water so that it doesn't affect us and the pumps negatively in the building. When other people here are buying water and us in our building, we have to get rid of it. So we don't. When we open the tap, it's became okay for us to leave it open, which is not good when we raise awareness on saving water. And we tried also to find a way maybe to sell the water. It's not being
qu'elle ne s'accumule pas
okay.
dans notre bâtiment.
It's okay. So you know, people here sometimes we need to buy water. Many buildings need to buy. We have citern which buy, and sometimes it's raining and people are buying water. It's you know, Lebanon is a country of contradiction. So I'm living, you know, and I don't like it. I don't like that we have to open the tap and we're not being able to sell the water. It's illegal. We have to, and it's not logistically, it is not practical. So it stirred emotions in me as well. Thank you.
Salama, if I get some brief reflections on what you said and Khulud before. So I think what you're saying is extremely interesting because first of all, what you said about
Tu viens de nous dire est très intéressant.
We need to mute Juima. Thank you.
The sound is not from me, it's coming from someone else.
No, I know. Yes, from the interpreter, Juima. Yes. So
actually, Alexandra, Juima is a trainee, so she might want to take the floor.
Bonjour.
Later on. Okay.
Okay. Bonjour.
Okay, bonjour. Bonjour à tous. Alors d'abord, très ravie de participer à cette réunion très riche. Malheureusement, j'ai raté le début parce que vous avez mentionné que la réunion par rapport à nous en Algérie était programmée à 11h. Et comme par hasard, j'ai consulté le lien et voilà, je me trouve avec vous. Donc, j'ai raté pas mal de choses, j'imagine. Mais sinon, alors, pour ne pas répéter, si vous permettez, ce qui a été dit par par le Libanais, donc la même chose ici en Algérie. Et une chose que j'ai remarqué récemment, d'ailleurs, je compte en faire des statistiques avec des collègues, c'est que c'est juste un exemple que je vais citer. Les citernes, ici, on vend l'eau dans des citernes, l'eau potable dans des citernes. Et ces citernes, on les transporte dans des je sais pas, des petites caravanes et tout ça. Et ce que j'ai remarqué, c'est que la citerne, pour se déplacer d'un lieu à un autre, laisse couler l'eau pendant des kilomètres et des kilomètres. Donc déjà là, c'est gaspillage que personnellement, je ne supporte pas. Et justement, j'ai parlé à un vendeur d'eau. Je lui ai dit comment vous laissez toute cette eau, toute cette quantité d'eau couler pendant des kilomètres, voire parfois il se déplace d'un village à un autre, d'une commune à une autre, et il laisse beaucoup d'eau, des litres et des litres d'eau qui coulent comme ça. Malheureusement, ça me fait mal au cœur. Ça, alors que cette eau qu'ils vendent, on la ramasse des sources d'eau naturelles qu'on trouve un peu partout en Algérie, hein, mais surtout la ville là où j'habite, on la trouve partout, des sources d'eau naturelles. Vous pouvez prendre donc votre voiture, louer une voiture et voilà, et aller et profiter de cette nature et de cette eau potable, bonne aussi. Malheureusement, eux, qu'est-ce qu'ils font? Ils la ramassent, enfin, ils collectent cette eau dans des citernes qui ne sont pas propres, malheureusement. C'était de l'eau potable avant qu'elle soit mise dans des citernes et après on la transporte en voyageant un peu partout dans la ville pour la vendre à un petit prix symbolique, pas trop cher par rapport aux bouteilles d'eau qu'on achète en fait, des supérettes et tout ça, mais beaucoup d'eau, l'eau qu'on gaspille, peut-être, j'imagine que l'eau gaspillée et qui coule pendant toute cette période, la quantité est plus que celle qu'ils vendent. Donc, c'est une question de culture, je pense. D'ailleurs, j'en ai parlé avec ces vendeurs. J'en ai fait, je vous ai dit quelques statistiques provisoires. C'est une question de culture. Donc, lui, qu'est-ce qu'il fait? Il n'est pas en train de protéger cet environnement. D'ailleurs, il est en train de faire du commerce uniquement. Ils vendent de l'eau. Comme s'ils vendent du lait, comme s'ils vendent du pain, voilà, des pâtes et tout ça. Donc, c'est une question de culture. Et la même chose qui se passe dans les universités. D'ailleurs, j'en ai discuté hier avec le recteur de l'université. Les étudiants laissent les robinets ouverts. Et on laisse aussi des tuyaux, on trouve des tuyaux partout dans les jardins de l'université qui laissent l'eau couler pendant 1 heure, pendant des vacances aussi, hein. Donc, presque 15 jours pendant les vacances, pendant le ramadan, l'eau était en train de couler voilà, pendant des jours et des jours et des jours. Et malheureusement, ça me fait mal au cœur personnellement. Et justement, si je peux en faire... je compte faire une enquête, mais je ne sais pas si je trouve des collègues avec moi ici, même des autres villes, et en faire tout un projet qui parle de ça, le gaspillage dans des universités, dans les écoles primaires, les établissements scolaires. Donc, là où normalement on parle du gaspillage d'eau et de la protection de notre environnement et de notre eau. Malheureusement, c'est là où se passe, où on trouve le gaspillage, beaucoup plus le gaspillage. Donc, je ne vais pas trop tarder. Merci pour ces minutes que vous m'avez accordées.
So if I may speak, we have the same problem. A very similar problem. And in Lebanon, we have also, it's a mismanagement because they say that there's no water. So how come you have all those, the cisterns? How come you can find water to sell, but there's no water from the government, from the state to supply all the houses? And the country, we have snow every year, so there's a lot of water. It's a pure mismanagement. That's another story. Okay, thank you.
If I may, thank you both, and merci beaucoup. If I may, I mean, this is a very complicated. I think both what you're saying from Algeria, the example, and from what you said, even from your building, where there is a source of water that is actually a problem for your building, and you have to waste it. Right? You have to waste it in order to protect the building.
Yes, sometimes we offer it for our neighbors for free.
Yes. I think, I mean, we could discuss about this for a long time. This is a very complicated issue. But in terms of communication, I think it just shows how sensitive issues can be and how important, what we said before, we need to know who we are talking to, who our audience is, and what their problem is. So, for example, if you do a campaign, if somebody, sends you, tells you, oh, you shouldn't be wasting water, you might actually tell them, what are you talking about? This water actually in my building, it's causing problems in my building.
Exactly.
So, or somebody, or the Juima in Algeria might say, what are you talking about? All these water sources are being wasted, so that because the government is letting people just bottle it, waste most of it, and then sell some of it. And so what is the point of telling me to save water at home, for example? So I think it is great that you're sharing these examples, because it shows also that when you are communicating to your audiences, right, there may be so much going on in their heads, in their minds, in their lives that we don't know about.
Le public à qui vous vous adressez peut avoir des idées.
Somebody wants to take the floor?
Oui,
Est-ce que vous voulez reprendre la parole?
oui, juste une idée. Le problème, oui, vous avez entièrement raison, monsieur. Là, il faut parler de sensibilisation, la sensibilisation de la population, donc de tout le monde. Donc, celui qui vend de l'eau, c'est vrai que c'est son travail et il le fait, il est là pour travailler, pour vendre de l'eau et gagner de l'argent, mais je peux le faire en respectant et en protégeant notre environnement, notre ville. Et l'eau, voilà, l'eau, c'est la vie, quoi. On ne peut pas vivre sans l'eau, sans eau. Et du coup, c'est une question d'éducation et sensibilisation. Ce qui manque, c'est la sensibilisation. En arabe, c'est tahsis. Voilà, c'est la sensibilisation. Ici, vous sensibilisez pas votre population, vos enfants, vos élèves, dans les écoles, dans les universités, ben malheureusement, on n'avancera jamais. Voilà, c'était juste ça, c'était juste l'idée de la sensibilisation, et j'insiste sur ce mot. Hein.
In Arabic, it's also توعية.
Oui, توعية وتحسيس.
Yeah. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup.
Et ça se passe au niveau des écoles surtout. On commence par les écoles primaires, collège, ensuite le lycée, voire les universités, c'est clair. Parce qu'un étudiant de 23 ans, j'ai des étudiants qui ont 26, 27 ans. Si vous leur demandez de ne pas gaspiller de l'eau, ben, il peut vous dire, peut vous insulter, parce que c'est une question de culture et d'éducation déjà à la maison. S'il voit la maman en train qui laisse le robinet toute la journée pour faire la vaisselle, le linge et tout ça, donc c'est déjà une affaire d'éducation. Donc ça commence déjà de la maison, puis dans les écoles et bien sûr pour aller plus loin. Et pourquoi pas, on peut le faire et on peut y arriver, croyez-moi. Moi, j'ai beaucoup de confiance à mon peuple en tout cas, et on pourra, Inch'Allah, réussir. Voilà. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. I think this is extremely important, and this is just an aside that obviously communication needs to go hand in hand with education, with deeper teaching and learning and experience sharing, right? It's not just, I think, what you're talking about, the sensibilisation, it's extremely important. It's getting people to feel things deeper, right? And this needs to go, as you said, through schools as well, through educational programs. Just before we go back to the main presentation, just to share, I think, but also here we're discussing a small, let's say a small angle of messaging, which is, we saw the two videos, and so which one of the two does a better job at increasing this sensibilization or raising awareness or sensitizing people? And I think, as we heard before, that depends. So for some person, India can be far away, or if you're Indian, and this is very correct, right? If you're Indian, maybe you feel it much closer, the second video. But even if you're Indian, maybe you think, look, I'm living in an Indian city. I've never been to a village. I don't want to go there. That's fine. I care about problems in the city. It really depends. But one thing that I want and I'm not going to say which video is, because this is also about communication. There's no better or worse. But I think understanding our audience is very important. And one thing I want to share is that the first video, I think, relies on, let's say, a negative feeling. Okay, it's a critical feeling. It's what is this person doing? This is so wrong. This is, as we heard before, you very rightly said, this is making me angry, right? And this is an important feeling to tap into, but I think we need to be careful how we use it and how much we use it. This negative feeling, this feeling of anger, or especially when we talk about things like, think about climate change. Every day there's news about there's negative news every day about climate change, about the disasters happening, and even more disasters along the way. And there have been studies that, a lot of people just switch off because they cannot stand this negativity. They think, if this cannot be all my fault. Like, if I turn off the light, then the world will be saved. Or if I don't turn off the light, I'm destroying the world. This is, for a lot of audiences, this can actually cause them to switch to TikTok and watch something else and think that our message is, oh my God, I don't want, this is too much. And this is something we need to be careful about. The second video, I think, rests overall on a positive feeling. And it's interesting, even though the message is exactly the same, that don't waste water because water is valuable for a lot of people, right? It's exactly the same information, but the second video rests on a positive feeling. It's helping you feel the value of water. And if you watch the video again, or at least every time I watch it, I'm moved. I feel the child, as we discussed before, the adult child, the child feels, oh, this is so nice that these people are like, it's a miracle for people who have been used to traveling 3 hours every day to get water. Getting this source of water in their village is like a miracle. And I have it at home every day. So it can help me to value water more and less to feel bad. Oh, I shouldn't leave the tap because this is what a stupid person would do. Just as I won't say more. I think it's
Alexandre, can I add to the discussion?
Yes.
In terms of communication, what I found very effective in both videos is the absence of speech, of words. So, especially in the first video, there's no voice whatsoever. In the second, it could function as well without any talk. So this is very strong, and that they're both they create these positive or negative feelings in a very short, in a short time. So in 30 seconds, or maybe in the second video, 1 minute, you create a result that you want. So you create some spar of feelings in a condensed way. And I think this is something that we need to keep in mind, because we want to have everything in our communication. We tend to talk a lot or to have a lot of information, but maybe this way of communicating is more effective in the end.
Yes, exactly. I would like to second that as well. Sometimes, many times, the nonverbal communication, but when it is very strong and conveying a really strong message, can be far more effective, much more effective than the one with sound and longer and length. It could be just seconds sometimes, just few seconds and nonverbal, and really to convey a very powerful message. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Salama, and thank you, Ero. I totally agree. This is a very important point to raise. It goes straight to the feeling, right? It causes the feeling. So I think the child part of the personality goes straight there. It doesn't use any data or any information. There's no science, there's no numbers, there's no facts, there's nothing of that. So we need to think about when we use what tool. So what tool to use for what purpose, right? So very, very often, this is the best tool to use. And this can be, very often, this can be the best tool to grab people's attention and start a discussion, right? And once you have their attention, then you can go into the more scientific part, the more detailed part, the more adult part, the more, as we discussed before. So this is extremely, thank you, Ero, and thank you, Salama. Shall we, let's go ahead and we'll have the chance to discuss again. Let me share again the presentation. Is it okay now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So continuing our discussion, some of you in the survey that you completed, also you mentioned how to engage with media and how to attract their attention. And I think, again, this is a long topic that we will briefly introduce here, but I think that thinking about the relationship aspect of communication is again, very important. So this is very practical, but, and we will get a chance to discuss a little bit later, but it's very important to build relationships with journalists, right? And journalists are people, they are doing their work. Again, we need to think of them as an audience with their own needs. So and this is very simple, but so when a friend of mine who was working in media explained this to me, I was like, oh, this is, finally, I understand. This is like a revelation to me that, they are doing their job. And you can, by offering news, information about your project, you can help them. Because what they need is input into their stories, or input for their website, for their newspaper, for whatever they're doing as journalists. And they're relying on people like you to provide that information. And so the question is, what is it that you can offer them? What is the story that you can offer them? The information, the data. This again, when discussing about media, it is very important to think about reality. What is going on beyond simply the scope of your project and beyond simply your interest? Okay. A very simple example that I wanted to mention it before, as you said, because you spoke about all these aspects of water management. So, for example, Malta's Energy and Water Agency was running a very big campaign on water conservation at home. So how to save more water at home and not waste water. But then COVID happened. Okay. So when COVID happened, they started getting messages on Facebook that they were continuing with their messages saying you need to save water, etc., etc. But when COVID happened, people started writing on Facebook and other platforms saying, we have actually, we are trying to wash our hands. We have all this problem with disinfecting things. So how can we save water when we need to be washing our hands and our children's hands, and there is so much fear about COVID. And what they realized is that the message at that moment needed to change, right? Because they had to adapt, and they turned to how to use water efficiently to disinfect, to protect yourself. So again, talking about the value of water, but not putting water saving as number one priority. Whatever happens, this is my project. This is what I need to project. No, because the reality had completely changed. And this allowed them to stay relevant, and also instead of developing a conflict with their audience. So this relevance to current affairs, again, when you're connecting with media and trying to promote a story or your activities, it's very important to think relevance to current affairs can be as simple as World Wetlands Day. So on World Wetlands Day, or World Biodiversity Day, or World UNESCO Heritage Day, media will be looking for relevant stories. So maybe my organization in Bethlehem, or for reducing plastics, maybe it's I don't know if there's a World Day Against Plastics. Maybe there is. So on that day, there's certainly a lot of interest on that globally. So on that day, there will be a need for stories and data, and I need to use that. And also, again, what is happening what is happening at the moment, and that I can use to promote my story. This is we discussed it in the reverse before. So Iro said that, with these videos, it's a straight emotional message. It goes to the heart without any talk, any figures, just goes to the heart of the issue. This is different. When you want to approach media, you need to rely on data and facts. Because otherwise, if I go to a journalist and tell them, we need to talk about street children in my town because they are suffering a lot. He will tell me, okay, what numbers do you have? Is there a new study out? Is there at least a story of one child that something impressive happened, either good or bad, that I can promote as news, right? Because the question is, what is new? News is not about opinions and a very long story about the eternal that we said before. There are so many street children, it's a terrible problem. But this is not news. This is not helping the journalist go. And this is another way, a good way to think about it. What will help the journalist go to their editor, because there's always an editor at the newspaper, at the web, and tell them, I've got a great news story that will attract a lot of interest. And he says, the editor says, so what is the story? There are a lot of street children. He says, I know that everybody knows there are a lot of street children. What can you tell me about this? Is there a new study out? Did something happen to them? What is news? Okay. And this is well known. If you Google it, this is very well known about when preparing a media story. So the 5 W's you need to address: what happened, who is the actor, who is doing it, when, where is it happening, and also why. What is the dynamics of this story? And again, if you think about, there is climate change is destroying our our marine ecosystem. This is not a story. What, who, when, where? Some scientists discovered in the belly of a whale, they discovered 30 tons of plastic, which shows, last week, this is a story. But to talk generally about a problem, it's not a story. And a simple test about a news story is something that you can go and tell a friend of yours. Did you hear what happened? I read this. And where you won't go, I read that there are a lot of plastic. I went to a conference last week, which was organized also by Mio and Professor Skoulos. And, I heard that by 2050, there will be more plastics in the sea than fish. Okay. This is a fact that stuck to my head. I know why is it interesting? Of course, I know there is a plastics problem, but I heard a simple fact that actually stuck into my head. So this is the logic. And I actually found an example from Lebanon today. It's a very bad example. It's bad in the sense that it's a very sad example. And I will present it first. So this is the second paragraph of the news item from the Guardian website. So it says, Lebanon's economy and electricity system are broken, and much power, so electricity, is now generated locally with devastating effects on air quality and health.
Exactly.
Sorry?
Exactly. I mean, this is our problem, our biggest problem, especially here in Beirut. There are maybe 4,000. There are talks that there are 4,000 electric generators in the city. The air is polluted to an extent, to a very, very large extent that sometimes, you can smell in the air the gases. And there are many, of course, cancer cases are rising, especially lung cancer. It's terrible.
Exactly. It is exactly what you're saying. It's extremely sad. So let's look at it in the sense of how can we, so let's say you're an organization or a resident or an organization working on this issue, and you're trying to raise awareness about this. You're trying to shock people into doing something about it. So the point is, you started telling us what happened, and then you brought in some data, right? You said there are 4,000 generators. There are cancer cases rising. So can we document this? Can we provide data on this? This would be extremely important, because if we stay at what I'm showing right now, it's a general statement. Okay, it's happening, it's terrible, but where are the facts? And so this is actually the first paragraph on the website. Cancer rises 30% in Beirut as diesel generators poison city. And it's based on a study I read by the American University of Beirut that just came out, right?
Yes.
And exactly. So it's very, for news, right? It's very important that there are these facts that we can use to attract people's attention. The facts are like hard concrete that people can latch onto, they can grab, right? Whereas other things, I can say, oh, things are terrible in Lebanon. Somebody else will say, oh, come on, it's exaggerated. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. You know, maybe in some parts of the city, maybe in others, it's not so bad. But if I'm sharing a fact, then I can grab news attention. And I think even the top headline is interesting. Where can you hide from pollution? I think, again, for me, it's helpful. If you think about the parent, adult, and child, I think this is interesting because the information speaks to the adult, right? Cancer rises 30%. Shocking. This is, oh my God, this is a problem. The other part, I think, speaks perhaps to the child, because it means no one is safe from this. You can't hide behind, maybe rich people will say, I don't care, these are problems for poor people. But pollution is for everyone, right? How are you going to stay away from pollution? So this kind of conveys the message that you're not safe. Nobody's immune to this. So again, going into a brief, let's say, interactive session for a few minutes, I would like to hear, I know also I've seen that Banlastics, for example, have done a lot of media work, I think, and I saw on your website, you've been quite active in doing this. So would you like to share some examples of anyone from the group, or take the floor and share either things that you saw worked, so in the sense that you saw, yes, this did attract media attention and journalist attention, or things that didn't work, things that, you know, we tried to push this, but actually they were not interested. So let me stop sharing again. Yes.
So thank you, Alexandros. May I not share an example, but talk a little bit about the specific situation here in Palestine, because we talk about the media and we talk about how to forward our messages or how to frame our messages depending on the audience and the current situation. So our problem here is, especially when you talk about the media, is the current situation of the war in Gaza and what is going on, which is engaging not only the local media, but the whole world. So when we come to think about how we frame our messages to our audience in such a situation under this political, in this political context, we really feel that that is not on the priority list of our people, that there are many other concerns about their physical existence, about the future, about so many aspects. So just maybe for the future, if we can maybe have a bilateral session on this. It is very difficult for us to talk about climate issues, about reduction of plastic, about saving the environment, even if there is a huge need of that. But if you consider the environmental catastrophe caused by the war, which is, I read also another study relevant to 20 polluting states in 20 years, equivalent to 3 months of the environmental crisis in Gaza. So if we have this in mind, and then we will start talking with our audience on social media or talking to journalists to raise issues related to climate, to environment protection, to be responsible when we use plastic. That seems to be, you know, Chinese for our people. So our great challenge here is how do we formulate our messages? How do we talk to our audience under these circumstances without, you know, without giving them the feeling we're out of this world, we're not part of this world. We're talking to them because we also care about the future, because with the limited water resources and land resources we have, if we are not behaving responsible, and if the political conflict will be over, we have to think from now how to do our part. So just to make it very short, that is one of the main challenges we face. I don't have an example of how it worked or how it failed. We've been working on many campaigns, and Marianne, who is with us, she has been working on social media on different issues. That works. But today, with the current situation escalating, that will sound weird. So we have to be very careful how to address our people on issues like that. So if we can, maybe this is also for Vicky and if we can have maybe another bilateral session or another thought about how to deal with the specific situation we have here with the ongoing war and our whatever efforts to raise awareness towards reduction of plastic. That would be great. But I'm eager to hear other examples of other countries.
Thank you very much, Khulud. I think this is extremely important what you raise. I think there is no easy answer, or I don't know if there is an answer, but certainly there is no easy answer to what you're saying. It's very difficult. The situation is, okay, on a different level of difficulty, but I mean, even the communication question is very difficult. It does remind me of, I don't know if anyone else has any experiences of what Khulud is saying of, so let's say current affairs being on a totally, there's an emergency on a totally different level, a totally different focus. And how can I make my message not sound even annoying, right? Like you said, Chinese, or not just not attracting attention, but even having a negative reaction. People saying, look, the world is coming apart and you're telling me not to use plastic bags? Like, are you crazy? We're being bombed, right? I mean, it does remind me of COVID, of the situation during COVID. I think we had, even us in water organizations, we had a lot of discussions saying, you know, what can we continue with our projects? Right now, people are living or dying, even in the first stages of COVID, where people were really scared, right? Before any vaccine, before anything. So again, there was this issue. Should we communicate? Should we turn off all our communications? What do we do? Does anybody have any experiences or any thoughts that they wish to share on what Khulud said? Or any other examples?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I can share some thoughts based on what Khulud said. It also struck me to what happened to the way we are operating as an NGO during COVID, as you said, especially in the first year. And these questions about whether we are being relevant to our audiences when something so serious happens in the world. I guess after some time, after you get over the moments of panicking, or that you don't know how to handle this new situation, and if the situation goes on for some months, like COVID did, and unfortunately like the war does in several countries, I saw in our communities, which is teachers, we basically work with teachers and students, that they were looking for, you know, the ordinary kind of routine, to grab to this routine and kind of keep on going, that they wanted this. I'm not saying that it's an answer to what you say, but that it can be comforting for some people, if they're not in immediate danger, to feel that some things are working, like schools, or I don't know, like So I had this impression after the first months.
Thank you, Iro. I see Rimala has raised her hand, and Noor.
Yes. Sorry, this is Noor. All right. One quick thought is because also Egypt in our context, we're very much affected by what is happening in Palestine. And we're also thinking about the relevance of our work in terms of like a genocide happening on our like doorstep, I would say. So one thing that we do is making our content relevant because to the current context, because at the end of the day, also like the genocide is also an environmental crisis, right? So just always linking what like the genocide and its effect, because I know that there are a lot of effects on the water contamination when it comes to the genocide. For instance, there is also an ecocide. So this is something that we do. Like, how can you link the environmental crisis with the social crisis so that people find it relevant to your work? Same thing goes to COVID. Like, for instance, when COVID hit, there has been a lot of plastic consumption, and it was understandable because of the medical issues, like or the medical products, like the mask, for instance, they need to be single use at the end of the day. But how can you make a project to, for instance, have a certain way or like a certain disposal way for people to get rid of the mask, so that this way we can handle the mask in like the most environmentally friendly way as possible, but to ensure that also it's not disposed in the sea or the ocean. So yeah, it's always about thinking how the current crisis is relevant to your environmental issue and linking both to make it resonate with the people. Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you, Noor. Thank you. I think this is extremely important as a response to what Khulud said. I think it's very, it's also brave and very, very, you know, flexible from your end that this is the reality and this is what you need to adapt to. And I'm thinking as a general background, let's say that, again, the audience, again, I think to Khulud, I think by putting ourselves in the shoes of our audience, so let's say something very important has happened to me, right? There's a death in my family, or there's something, a personal tragedy, and somebody's trying to tell me a good message about, I don't know, climate change or something else. But right now I'm like, can't you see my uncle passed away? I mean, this is tragic. How can you even? So I think one thing is that your organization, you need to show to people that deep down, what you care about is them, not your goal, not your project, not your, you know, plastics, or whatever, or my project, my regeneration project. No, what you care about is actually the community. When you really care about the community, of course, you will be sensitive to the genocide and the disaster today, but that does not mean you will forget everything else. As Noor also said, because also why, or to put it another way, what are the small things that we can fight for or that we can improve even in a very, very, very bad situation? Because the situation is, there's not much we can do to stop the war, right, individually. So, but at least we can show solidarity and we can perhaps improve a few things, even to do with, as Noor said, with pollution, with byproducts, with whatever. But showing that this is an action of solidarity, I think this is very important, because this needs to show respect, this needs to show connection. For me, this needs to show, so if somebody again came to me when I had a death in my family, they would need to show that they're coming in full understanding of this. And offering, perhaps even telling me, look, you know what, I know you've been depressed. Why don't we go and do a beach cleanup so that you feel better? I know you would feel better by doing something active because you've been so sad lately, and I know it would feel good to come together with your community and do something positive. I don't want to over, you know, the example, but I think, and again, this is a very difficult question. This is what you're sharing, Khulud, but I would, as long as, which I'm sure there are, as long as your guiding principles are solidarity and respect for with your community and for your community, then you can try different things and see the response. And I think what Tiro said is also true, that some people also they want normality. They want, or they want things that, small things that are within their control, because war is unfortunately not within our control. Anyone else wants to share a positive example from media, a media story, something that really attracted people's attention? Anyone? I'm sure Noor from and Banlastic again, because I've seen a lot of their work. I'm sure they have found ways to, they've seen a lot of response from media, local media, or even international media. Anyone who would like to share that experience?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Marianne. I'm from Bethlehem. I work as a social media officer from Zuwade. So basically, my experience regarding environmental awareness, for example, through Zuwade's social media was a little bit challenging for us. Why? Because the mentality here basically in the community is very low in regards to environmental awareness and sustainability, for example. But at Zuwade, first of all, Zuwade is a coffee shop and a restaurant serving coffee and a variety of dishes and meals in the community, and it's very popular here. So due to the popularity, as a Zuwadi group, we decided to start working with environment and raising awareness about environmental stuff. And through social media, we started that actually because the platform for Zuwadi is strong. So it was very difficult in the beginning, but through videos a little bit and through campaigns, we started that, and we actually started changing the mentality for the people. Like, for example, do not use plastic bags, use a tote bag, for example. Do not use like plastic bottles or plastic cups for coffee. Use reusable mugs. So we're starting that. It's quite hard, but what through communication, I guess, and this is what we want more. We want more strategies or more tips on how to communicate it for people who have low mentality on environment, for example. So this is why it's quite challenging for us. So I just wanted to say like how it's challenging, and especially in the times of war right now, like it's either we have to focus on like sharing stuff about the war or sharing stuff about the environment. So it's very confusing in a way, and the customer's mind is like in confusion basically.
Thank you, Marian. And so just to
You're
understand, so the coffee shop, you mentioned the coffee shop, does it belong to your organization? It's run by your
Yes.
organization?
Yes, run by our organization.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Thank you. And that's again, a very important question. Noor, would you like to do because I know you have a lot of experience again, would you like to respond to what Marianne said? So do you have experience in Banlastic with groups that have very little awareness, and have you had this type of experience?
Yes, actually many times. Because in Banlastic we also work with local communities, not only young people, local communities like fishermen, farmers at a time. So these people understand from the lived experience, but they do not really understand like the technical words that are very hard. And on that cases, like we really use their experience. We generally try to reach out to, for instance, one person who is a knowledge bearer and is a trustworthy person in that community, and really working with that person, helping them understand more. And that person becomes like our entry point to that community to help us better understand the community, to also cater the content better for them. So that's mainly the key, just understanding the community, speaking with them, and speaking their language as well. So we do not have to say climate change, but we can relate to how this issue particularly affects fishermen with sea level rise and so on and so forth, but also using the right language to make sure that it resonates. It all comes down to really the interest as well, right? So to linking the issue with the interest of the people to make them interested in understanding what you're saying and what you're speaking, to make them an ally rather than a barrier. I hope this helps.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Hello.
much.
Hello. My name is Ayşe from Turkey. At Sirmali Campus College, in Turkey, we have made a deliberate choose to refrain from using plastic bottles and cardboard cups. This decision stems from our commitment to instill instill environmental consciousness in our students by opting for alternative solutions. We aim to reduce plastic waste and promote sustainability within our school community. Our endeavor reflects our dedication to fostering a greener and more eco-friendly campus environment, in creating responsible consumption habits among our students, and contributing positively to the global efforts to combat environmental challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayşe. Thank you.
Alexandra, can I share one more thought? Sorry,
Of
building
course.
on what
Noor said.
No, Marion, I think it was Marion, the name,
Marion.
with the coffee shop. Yeah, because it's something that we regularly face as a challenge, is the teaching to the converted. Okay, we work mostly with students and teachers. It's not the wider public that me personally I work with, but I face this problem that you basically communicate with the same pool of people again and again who are already positive to your messages, and they're ready to make a change, or they're living an eco-friendly, livelihood. But what about the other big bulk of the part of the population that is indifferent to your messages? If you have any thoughts and tips on where we can start with this big part, it would be useful for the discussion.
Sure. I think, the problem is, you would say that you are the target audience that you are speaking to is more or less restricted to people who are already.
Yeah, and it's the same. It doesn't scale up because the changes that we need to do in terms of environmental actions we need to take, with the climate change, are system-wide. And to do this, you have to have everyone changing something. But still, you see, or I see that I'm working again and again with the same pool of people.
For example,
converted ones. The converted ones, or the teachers that are already doing, projects, and it's the same teachers. We have the challenge of reaching out to new teachers and new students groups that undertake action.
And what happens when you try to reach new groups? You mean they don't respond, or if you switch your focus and say, now we will engage another demographic, another target group, what happens then?
It's challenging to get them on board. Maybe, yeah, it's challenging.
I mean, we can discuss this again more also, but one quick thought is that I'm thinking what Noor said before about getting the ambassador. Like she said, identifying one person and getting the ambassador, and that wanted because they know the local reality, they speak the local language, like the local concerns. So they will not speak about climate change; they will speak about fishing. So they use them as a vehicle to advance, to leave their own territory, right, and move into another group's territory, right? So I think perhaps just a quick thought on what you're saying is that by trying to team up with another organization, another department in the university or the school or whatever, somebody who's not your usual ecological, eco-friendly environment, somebody who's in the
outside
engineering.
our comfort zone, maybe.
Yes, yes. But I think that, so before I give the floor to Noor again, I see you've raised your hand. I think what I like a lot about what Noor said is that we need to not think about communication, as we said before, getting out on a balcony and speaking to a crowd and saying, oh, maybe the same crowd turned up today. What am I doing wrong? It's not that. I need to move. It's not me and a crowd. I am moving within, I showed this graph before of let me share briefly. Can you see it now?
Yes.
So, this kind of concept, right? So I can engage with a lot of people and these people will bring me in contact with other people. So yes, I can start by leaving my comfort zone and not going somewhere where I don't know anybody. I mean, and I don't speak the language and it's pointless, but with somebody who will lead me outside my comfort zone. Noor, would you like to come in again? I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I just had a question and a quick thought. Why do you think it's hard to penetrate those communities? Like, what is the reason why you cannot penetrate them? Because identifying why they're not interested would help you a lot with penetrating the community. Because sometimes, I personally, when I first started speaking with people that are, for instance, not very highly educated, I had the presumption that they wouldn't speak to me and they wouldn't understand and they would have other priorities. But actually, when I spoke with them, I found out other things and another perspective. So it's really important to also understand why it's hard to penetrate, to identify, how you can penetrate that community. That's one thing. Another thing and another tip that I think really also worked with Banlastic is like relating things with not only the local context but also the national ones, because at the end of the day everyone is working on the SDGs. Every country I think has the 2030 agenda, so maybe trying to reach out the officials from that point of view is like how like environmental activism is important, and it's important to include it in schools, and it's important to reach out to the CSOs because it would be better for you on a local or on a national level as well as on a global level if you want to showcase that. So also local officials are really important to help you also penetrate those schools, because sometimes those schools wouldn't be accepting, but when it comes from like a public official, it might be more facilitated more. So I think this is also one more thing that worked with us when it comes to schools, because a lot of the barriers also come from bureaucracy. So it's also about the framing, like as Alexander had mentioned before.
Thank you. Thank you. Any response, Iro or Marian? I don't know if perhaps this was to both. These comments were both to Marian and Iro, because Marian also mentioned how can we address people who are not, their level of awareness is very different, very low, perhaps. I think Noor's first comment to me sounded like, maybe I'm not interpreting right, sounded like, are you sure that these people are not responsive? I mean, have you actually tried to, go out there and engage with them and seen that they don't want to respond? Because this is, I guess, an essential part of going out there and, taking that risk. And as you said, going out of the comfort zone.
Well, my reflection would come back to your initial comment saying that in the end, when you're running projects and you're doing many things, you maybe don't devote the time necessary, and maybe we should stress that. No matter how small we are, if we take communication seriously, and since you're saying that it's about developing a relationship with our audience in consistent manner, we need to develop more time to really dig into their needs and why they're not responding and responsive and what is important for them, and then maybe rethink how we can reframe our work to be more relevant to them. Yeah, and these need some deep work, deep reflective work with them.
Thank you. I think this is very interesting. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? It's a very interesting. I think the discussion is very interesting. Anyone else? Khulud, you?
Yeah, I think what I understood, of course, we're sometimes frustrated because we're implementing projects and maybe it's not sustainable. To make a positive change in a community about a global issue, like even with the gender issue, we're talking about equality and gender equality, like much longer than we're talking about climate issues. And still we are talking to the converted. I mean, I think it needs generations to change this mindset of our communities worldwide. And I agree with Noor that there are different levels. Of course, we have to work on the global agenda, then we have to work on the national agenda, and then we do have our own projects in our small communities. And the purpose of such initiative, for example, today is to network and to, to increase the impact of such initiatives in order to reach out to a larger, let's say, audience. So sometimes it is, it's within the limited financial and human resources that we cannot reach into new communities. It's not about the question of why we are not able to reach into or penetrate, as Noor expressed, to other audience or to other groups of the community, and it will take time to have this accumulative impact of strategy formulation, implementation, and communication, as we're discussing today, in order to make the positive change that this should be a debate among an ordinary debate among the people and not only among an elite group of activists who care for the environment, for example. I think today we're better of talking about gender issues than 30 years ago, and I'm sure maybe in 10 years' time we will be better or reaching out to a larger group of people talking about climate issues. But networking and communication, I think, will enlarge our impact to larger audience, especially if the communication messages are powerful. And therefore, I think that the session of today is very important to help us do the right messaging under the current time, taking into consideration the current situation, but keeping in mind that we have to build a strategic partnership or relationship, as it was described, in order to tackle all of these issues. Now, there are small initiatives here and there. They cannot create the impact we expect or we would look for. But these small initiatives, if put together in the right way, to do the right messaging and to create better conditions to change the mindset of people, then it becomes, easier to reach out to more people. So the question, yes, is about how to communicate this to the non-converted, and to get the right message to address them and to make them interested in hearing about that and engaging about these issues. And that is, I'm sure, the question. And I don't know if we can answer this today, but it is about how we get to these minds and hearts, because it's also about emotion of these people whom we are not reaching today through our different projects.
Alexandre, I'm sorry. It's not so interesting what I'm saying now, rather boring, but in terms of time, how do you see this? Can we have 10 more minutes?
No, I don't want. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of keeping.
No. If you need some more 10 minutes, and we can go, if you all agree, until 10 past 12. So I don't know, 12 past 10. Sorry.
Since we started with a 10-minute delay, if you're okay, we can finish with a 10-minute delay.
And if you needed to close and summarize, I don't know what are your next.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. Vicky, how much time do you need? 5 minutes for the epilogue, the closing
1
remarks?
minute. 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay.
1 minute.
Okay. Okay, I don't want to take up too much extra. I'm always sensitive because I don't like it when people keep me over in meetings. But one thought came as Khulud was talking, and let me share again my screen. And I can, for the slides that we don't have time to discuss, we will share it with everybody. And so one thought regarding what you said, Khulud, about how to reach the communities, and Iro mentioned it as well, who are not responsive, etc. So one thought is that, again, a provocative thought is that if we want to reach them, we need to think, how are we helping them? How are we helping them in terms of their own problems? And of course, we can say we are helping them because climate change concerns everybody. So if we all do something for climate change, then we're helping everybody. Okay, but they need to feel directly that they are being helped with something. Thank you. Somebody wrote that. So I think that we need to consider what I mentioned in the beginning, is that communication is not something, let's say, for free. And what do I mean? That I will be broadcasting a message, and if it's a great message, then it will magically get into people's heads and people will accept it, and then they will believe me and live their life as I told them to, because it's the right message. But if it's a relationship, then there needs to be a balance. As we said, we need to listen to them. We need to listen to their own immediate reality. We spoke about the war right now, or we spoke about they're concerned about overfishing, not about climate change. Climate change is too far if they don't have enough fish to fish, in the work. So it needs to be a balanced relationship. Or it needs to, and that can be in many ways. It can be by sharing something fun, something engaging, something that will make me smile, that will make me laugh, that I would like to share on Facebook. Think about the things you are sharing on Facebook. What is it that you like about them, that you want to share them? Okay, that is giving something back to you. So this is an example from Malta. So Malta has a very active a public body, the Energy and Water Agency, and they were running a water conservation awareness campaign. So Malta is one of the driest places on earth, facing water scarcity, and they're trying to get people to save water at home, right? So, but from the outset, initially, although they did have a big campaign on media and television, etc., it was not enough. So they had to offer something to people. Okay, this is why I'm sharing this example. And what they offered is, trying to make it appear, yes, is this water conservation kit. So basically, first they offered this small kit which has an aerator. You put it on the tap and it reduces the water flow. Basically, you waste less water. And then to the people who are interested, you know, this was like a teaser. And then the people who are interested would actually go to the kiosk and or to the offices of the Energy and Water Agency to get the full kit, which you can see below, which has the shower head, etc. And so what I'm trying to say here is just that they were clearly offering something. They were not just saying, oh, you should save water because water is very important in Malta, etc. Okay, but what are you giving to people? And they were, of course, this had a big budget. I'm not saying this is always the solution, but I'm just saying that this is sometimes it's important to think about what are we offering people. And I think Marian mentioned the coffee shop. I think this is a great point of a very concrete, because, you know, you're offering people coffee. They're coming in contact with you. You can discuss with them live. I think this is a great starting point to engage with people in a very concrete way, not just abstractly. Okay, my final, I will again, and we will share the presentation. There are a few more slides that you can, and a couple more videos that you can watch that I really like, but we won't watch them today. So just one slide about communication and fundraising. So because I think this is always, again, this is very much linked to communication. And I think very often this is a concern of a lot of organizations. So as I said before, when you start asking for money, for funds, then communication takes another turn. If you go to a community that you have not engaged before and tell them, actually, I'm asking you to support our project, support our action. It could be by signing a petition or signing up to an event or making a donation. Then I think you will, very often you will see a different kind of discussion starting. So this discussion can be, how do I know this money is being invested in the right way? Or why does not the state do this? Why should I do this, support this? And why does not the government do this? Another set of questions would be, you know, show me that what you're doing actually works. What are the results that you have produced? Or another question can be, you're asking me to support some people, but you know, this will never end. This is, you know, this is charity, and this will just go on forever and ever and ever. And, you know, people should just learn to depend on themselves. Or finally, I've actually heard this a lot. People were, and who's going to help me? I have a lot of problems. You're asking me to support somebody. I have so many issues, and they will start, you know. Or they can ask, I would like to help as a volunteer. I would like to support the core of this work rather than support financially. And what I would like to make you think again, to connect with what I discussed before, is that I think the first set of questions relates to the parent part of the personality. So is this a serious project? How do I know where the money goes? Maybe I need to be sure there's no corruption, and etc. The adult part needs to see practical results. And again, this is not, I don't know, of course, the answers, but we're talking about communities that don't respond to our messages. Are we offering solutions to their practical problems? At least some of them, I mean, right? So their adult part, if it says, oh yeah, great ideas, great. But I have some practical problems in my life, in my work, in my neighborhood. Is what you're offering me helping me solve some of these practical problems, at least beginning to solve them? So this is a very practical question. And finally, the child part, I think, who again, like, you're asking me to help women, the gender balance that we mentioned, help whatever, even reduce plastics. But I feel weak. I have so many problems. I don't know if I can help anybody because I need help myself. You know, this is a natural human reaction. So, and finally, I think this is and I'm not saying these are legitimate questions that I think if we put ourselves in other people's shoes, very often we may find ourselves asking these questions. And finally, the final thing I want to share is this scale, the image of these scales here. Why? Because I think whether in communication or in engagement or in fundraising, this image for me is very important. And it means what? That what I'm asking by changing your attitude towards plastics, or by making a donation, or by changing your attitude toward women or gender, that your action can tip the scales that can actually produce a different result. So what I'm saying is that imagine that the scales are almost perfectly balanced, right? And my action, I'm choosing where to put my weight, okay? So I'm choosing A or B, and this will determine how things play out. This, if I can convey this feeling to my audience, this is extremely powerful and extremely important to make them feel that actually they have the power and the deciding power to change the course of events. Because the other extreme is to say, you know, there's these huge issues, climate change, plastics all over the globe, in the sea, the huge. These are terrible, huge issues. And then I will feel, but if these issues are so huge, doesn't matter what I do. That, you know, it doesn't really matter, right? Because they're just huge. So in terms of communication, again, we need to be very careful what our message is, because we want to sensitize people, as we discussed before, but we don't want them to grow, you know, to become immobile or become so scared or so burdened that they just can't move. I will stop here, and we will share the presentation for anyone interested. So perhaps any final, let me see how I can stop sharing. Any final questions? Any thoughts before again Vicky or Eniro take the floor for the closing? Any questions? Any thoughts?
Or maybe one word reflecting their feelings after the participation in the webinar. If there are no more questions, write in the chat or let us know, just a word as a feedback from the webinar.
By the way, you will receive the official evaluation form via email. So it's an anonymous questionnaire, and please devote 5 minutes for evaluating it. But maybe in an informal way, we can do a wrap up and close this interesting discussion. I see people are thinking about it. Vicky, maybe you want to present, as people think about it, the information about the next webinar.
Sure. So can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Here are our next steps for this WES activity. Actually, in a week, next Tuesday, we are holding the second online training. This time is dedicated to the campaign run by Heredero and will be facilitated also by the Spanish team in engaging families in a sustainable consumption and reducing waste campaign that took place a couple of years ago. So yes, please join us if you like on next Tuesday. We are going to start half an hour later, 11:30 Athens time or 10:30 European time, Central European time. And we are going to close this series of West CSD trainings with our last plenary online session, again, a discussion session, a participation session that is scheduled for the 28th of May. And also the Waste team leader, Professor Skoulos, will join us in the last session to reflect and close this series of online mentorings and trainings. So that's all from me. Of course, you will be given, you will receive the agenda and the link for next week's training very soon, by the end of the week.
Yeah, maybe I can share one final thought. Because I wrote what I want after this webinar. I would like tips and tricks I can use. So I think my major takeaway, my personal takeaway, in order to get out of my comfort zone, is to think of this ambassador entry point to our messages, but thinking more in the context of an organization or a more formal way. Yeah, of collaborating, so sparring the dynamics of a project through the lenses of a newcomer that sees things differently. I think this was my takeaway from the seminar.
Thank you.
I think it was very useful. I think the three of you, Vicky, Iro, and Alexandros, for this. It has been very useful also to hear the concerns of the others and how they deal with it in the different contexts and the different countries. Personally, it was also very nice to have the voices from Egypt, Lebanon, and also our colleague from Turkey. For me, it was very useful. I learned a lot, though I'm always involved in these discussions. But to think of it as a relationship which should be lasting, though relationships are very complex. Sometimes we have to be careful about relationships or even romantic relationships. But this is yes, this is the sustainable, let's say, approach to think of our small activities as a long-term initiatives that can create impact, and to network with others and to learn from the experiences of others. So it has been a privilege, is really 2 hours of provoking our minds and hearts to find ways how to deal with our own issues without the feeling that we are left alone with these concerns. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the next training. And hopefully then when we will share also some of our success stories within this small initiative. We do want to work with schools, with university, and with the ZUWADE group in order to make small steps that can lead us to a big change in the future if we work, let's say, in a sensitive way. I like also what Noor said about the ambassador issue, that of course we need to create some change agents within the community. Therefore, our initiative in Bethlehem partnered with Zero Waste Palestine, a young lady which was leading her own initiative about Zero Waste Palestine. And we were thinking of her as a person, an agent, to create more young leaders within the community who are sensitive and aware of this issue. So that was actually also in our minds, that if you want to do a change under these conditions of political instability and little awareness among the community, we need to work with someone who has already, who was courageous to think about these issues and has been in contact, in relationship with some audience, and to train others to be who might be interested. I'm sure there are a lot of young Palestinians who share these concerns with us, so that we use this young lady, if you want, as our agent to create other people who are engaged and who can reach out to another group of people. And in this way, we create in the Bethlehem area young I don't want to say activists, but young people who are sensitive to this issue and who can talk with their families, their communities, within their schools, within their university about all of this. So I think I talk a lot, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Khulud. Thank you. And I see Noor has raised her hand.
Yes, just a very quick thought, because I know we're above and beyond the time, is very grateful for this session, for the information as well as the community, because I think the most important thing that comes out of these kind of sessions is the community and the camaraderie and solidarity that comes out of it. And I hope that we will work not only as individuals on that project, but also to partner up to, you know, broaden the impact that we were talking about. And a request is, if everyone is comfortable, if it's okay for sure, is to maybe take a picture to commemorate this day, you know. And since we're talking about communication, it's also important to, you know, share about these kind of events. So yeah.
Thanks for this proposal.
Yes.
Usually we ask about it. We kindly ask to open your cameras and take a picture, but you know, from time to time.
But we have a lot to learn from
don't.
the ladies in communication, I think so. So anybody who can.
And that includes the Mio staff. Open your cameras.
And Tarek, Faisal, Habib, if you can.
Let's see who is with us.
Who survived?
This is a tough test, actually.
Oh, someone is in their pajamas, maybe. Okay, we can take the group picture.
Who's taking the picture?
We did. We did. No worries.
Oh,
We
you
will
already
send
did?
it out.
Okay.
I hope it's
Okay.
good.
So thank you very much all for your participation. Let me thank again Mr. Kandarakis for his intervention today and for facilitating this very interesting webinar. Thank you very much. I hope we will see you next week.
Yes, please join us for another interesting
Spread
seminar.
the word. Spread the word and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.